The generous guy pulls out a $10 bill for the homeless man, but this dude doesn't know when to stop and eyes all the cash in his hand. He shamelessly begs for the whole amount. Even though he's not happy about it deep down, Cart forces a smile, nods, and hands over all his money. Encountering such a good guy for the first time, the homeless dude freezes for a few seconds. Before Cart can change his mind, he ducks into the bushes and bails. The reason this guy is being weirdly generous is that a few days ago, he attended a seminar called Yes. The professor on stage loudly proclaimed that if you just never say no to anyone, luck will automatically come knocking at your door. But Cart, sitting in the audience, clearly didn't buy into this empty talk. Unexpectedly, the professor kicks off his shoes, parts the crowd, and charges straight at Cart. Before Cart can even figure out what's going on, he's totally dumbfounded. The professor instantly reads him like a book, calling out his shy personality and boring life. And he's dead right. Cart's life is a total disaster. He's pushing 40 and his career is going nowhere. On top of that, his wife left him, and he's been warming a seat at the bank for 5 years with 0 promotions. The root cause is his habit of rejecting everything. To avoid talking to people, Cart instantly tosses all applications. When he sees someone handing out flyers on the street, Cart puts on sunglasses and pretends to be blind. Seeing someone knock on his car window, he just ignores them and rolls it up. The most bitter part is seeing his ex-wife hugging her new guy right in front of him, and all he can do is quietly turn his car around. But the more he tries to hide away, the more the universe loves messing with Cart. The manager position he's been eyeing for so long finally gets handed to a coworker by his boss. Cart tries to play it cool, saying he doesn't care and justifying that getting promoted after 5 years of dedication is just normal. He wraps it up with a whatever happens, happens remark. He talks tough, but the moment he turns away, his face drops and he feels sorry for himself. Until one day, Cart randomly bumps into an old friend named Nick. Nick eagerly calls out his name and warmly greets him since it's been a while. Cart hesitantly recognizes his buddy too. You gotta know, Nick used to be just as much of a mess as him, but now he's like a totally different person, living this epic life that Cart has always dreamed of. He proudly flexes his achievements, climbing a peak in Africa, traveling and enjoying local delicacies in Australia, and even grabbing a gun to send a wild bison to the afterlife. His life is suddenly full of color and wild excitement. And the secret to that transformation was a life-changing seminar called Yes. Nick sees right through Cart's miserable expression, so he invites his buddy to go check it out. Cart gives a half-hearted response to brush it off and then completely dismisses the idea. Nick immediately calls him out, saying Cart actually hates his current job. But he stubbornly argues that he loves it. Seeing his friend being so stubborn, Nick grabs a rock and throws it right at the bank's door. Cart freaks out and calls him crazy, while Nick runs away, not forgetting to remind him about the seminar. That rock shattered the door of the place he'd worked at for 5 years. But it seems it still couldn't shatter Cart's stubbornness. His best friend's wild antics ultimately still couldn't make Cart give up his gloomy days. Until one day, another close friend couldn't take it anymore and yelled right in Cart's face. He irritably warned that if Cart didn't change his attitude, the obvious ending was that he'd wind up lonely and isolated until he grew old. That night, Cart went home and woke up in a cold sweat from a nightmare. He dreamed he passed away right in his own apartment. And yet, his friends who came to mourn acted totally indifferent. The group casually scrutinized his corpse, just like when he was alive, and started gossiping loudly. One guy joked that because they barely saw Cart normally, they couldn't even recognize him now. The whole group nodded in agreement, even cruelly denying their friendship. The harsh criticisms echoed in his ears as Cart woke up with a start, drenched in sweat, and started feeling guilty. What if one day he actually ended up in that pathetic state like his friends said, dying all alone in the corner of his house with no one caring? Thanks to that, Cart closed his eyes and took a gamble, following his friend to that seminar. Walking in, he was blown away. The vibe here was as crazy enthusiastic as a pyramid scheme rally. The speaker on stage kept pacing back and forth, shouting one single mantra: you gotta know how to say yes. He demanded the audience make yes their guiding principle in life. Who would have thought the guru would spot him, charge right down to him, and lecture him that if he just ditched the rejections, good fortune would naturally find its way to him. On the flip side, if he stubbornly kept saying no, the universe would bless him with nothing but bad luck. Under the guru's pressure, Cart reluctantly nodded his head. Only after getting a satisfactory answer did the guru finally let him off the hook. The brainwashing session finally ended. Just as Cart and his friend were walking out to the parking lot, unluckily, a homeless guy blocked their way, begging for a ride. Cart was about to drop some harsh words out of reflex, but his buddy next to him nudged him with an elbow as a reminder, so he had to bite the bullet and say yes. Just like that, the smelly, stinking homeless guy comfortably sat in his precious car. On top of hitching a ride, he even took the chance to beg and borrow Cart's phone to chat. But Cart suddenly realized that this ridiculous compromise was quietly breaking the stubborn ice inside him. On the long drive, the other guy's hyperactive energy suddenly made Cart feel contagiously happy. By the time he dropped the guy off in the middle of nowhere, the phone in the guy's hand had also died. The guy casually handed the phone back to him. And yet, as he was about to get out, he turned around and begged for some spare change. Since he'd already played the good guy, he figured he might as well go all the way. Cart emptied his wallet and handed it over to this greedy dude who was given an inch and took a mile. The grifter happily vanished without a trace, leaving behind a good luck wish. Because of that painfully long detour, his car also completely ran out of gas and died. He wanted to call for help, but his phone was already a brick. Our main guy had to angrily grab the red plastic gas can. He had to drag his feet walking through the night to find a gas station. Not even in his wildest dreams did Cart expect that this exact chain of terrible luck would lead him to meet the love of his life. This girl on the scooter was just as weird as Cart, with an endless passion for taking unconventional photos. She kept snapping pictures nonstop and complimented his facial expressions. Seeing the gas can, she took the initiative to ask about his car situation. Cart just scratched his head and admitted his bad luck. After hearing Cart's ridiculous story, the girl was immediately struck by how endearingly clueless he was. Before Cart could even ask for a favor, she enthusiastically motioned for him to hop on her bike. This girl's personality was kind of free-spirited and reckless. Not only did she love gunning the throttle, but after dropping Cart back at his car, she boldly gave him a sweet kiss. Sadly enough, Cart was still so frozen with joy that he completely forgot to ask for the beauty's phone number. Even though he was a bit bummed, getting hit by this stroke of romantic luck made him reconsider. Maybe following the guru's advice and saying yes to everything really could bring good fortune. Taking the bait just to see if his life would bloom. Starting the next day, no matter who asked for the craziest things, Cart blindly approved everything without a second thought. Whether his boss slammed him with weekend deadlines or he got spam emails looking for a soulmate, he happily clicked join for all of it. When an old lady came in asking for a loan to open a small bakery, he signed off on it blindly, completely ignoring her credit score. Even though the customer was still hesitant, Cart just waved his hand and declared the loan approved. The guru was seriously legit. Cart was on a roll, and nothing could stop him. He smartly used the box of cakes the customer brought to gift his boss, basically killing two birds with one stone. His drastically changed attitude really pleased his boss. The boss patted his shoulder and promised that as soon as he got promoted upstairs, the manager seat would definitely be Cart's. Needless to say how thrilled Cart was. He kept endlessly thanking Norman. The boss even added that his salary would get a nice bump too. The number thrown out was around $65K, which made Cart stunned and he had to double check. Getting a solid nod from his boss, he was absolutely over the moon. Right after clocking out, he gathered his crew to drink. Blurred by alcohol and tears of joy, Cart started completely losing his dignity. Not only did he tear up the dance floor with some terrible moves, but Cart also got hyped and offered to buy a round for the whole bar. His friends had to quickly drag him to a corner, but he just kept on shamelessly flirting around. The result? He messed with the wrong girl who was already taken. Faced with her boyfriend rolling up his sleeves ready to throw hands, Cart, fully embracing the guru's mindset, clearly said yes. His big mouth got him in trouble, and he immediately got beaten to a pulp by the musclehead. He got punched flat on the ground. During the scuffle, the guy stepped in and yelled at Cart for physically hitting on the wrong person. His friends standing by couldn't hold back their laughter before finally gathering around to help him up. As dawn broke, Cart stepped out the door with band-aids all over his face, only to run right into his elderly neighbor asking him to fix something. Sticking to his principles, he happily rolled up his sleeves to help out. Little did he know, the old lady had been eyeing this young guy for a long time. After fixing the wooden shelf to return the favor, the old lady didn't hesitate to demand some intimate payback. This challenge was honestly too much. Cart panicked and absolutely refused. The moment the rejection left his mouth, the curse instantly kicked in. Running for his life, his shirt got caught on the door hinge, and because he pulled too hard, Cart slipped and tumbled head over heels down the stairs. After that epic faceplant, Cart was so spooked he never dared to defy the guru's rules again. His boss threw a Harry Potter-themed costume party, and while his co-workers made every excuse to duck out, for the next few days, whenever anyone knocked to sell something, our guy bought it with zero hesitation. Whoever asked for charity donations, he obediently pulled out his wallet and enthusiastically chipped in. Cart wandered around, tearing off flyers from utility poles, and registered for every single class without missing one. Strumming the guitar melted away the feeling of being trapped he'd had for so long. The moment he took the controls of a plane soaring into the sky, he completely shook off all his daily frustrations. Or even dabbling in babbling a weird new foreign language helped broaden his horizons. Cart felt like he was born again, tasting the true joy of life. When he opened his heart to the world, the universe also started sending gifts his way, like one evening after work. He happily took a flyer for a gig and headed to the bar at the address. Who would have thought a real miracle would happen? The edgy singer rocking out on stage was exactly the scooter girl he'd been crushing on. This magical twist of fate made Cart worship the guru's teachings even more. Once the music stopped, Allison actually came over to chat with Cart. When he boldly offered to buy the beauty a drink, she smoothly turned him down with an excuse. It turned out, besides her passion for singing, Allison was also a gym teacher who did casual photography on the side. Catching wind that her class meets up for a run at 6 a.m., our boy Cart eagerly locked in a spot to join. The second he got to his room, he pulled out his phone to set an alarm, determined to hit the sack early and rest up. Who would have guessed his drinking buddies would call him right at this critical moment? Cart sluggishly picked up the phone, only to have Junie nag him to come out to the bar and party. His friend even bragged about just hauling back a whole case of energy drinks, inviting him to pull an all-nighter. The Red Bull-fueled bender lasted right up until dawn. The power of love is truly amazing. He still used his last ounce of sanity to crawl to the meeting spot. Because he'd overdosed on energy drinks mixed with alcohol, Cart's operating system suddenly ran smoother than usual. His eyes were completely wide and bugged out, smiling ear to ear without getting tired. His hyperactive vibe woke the whole class right up. Coincidentally, this crackhead-level energy hit right at Allison's weak spot. Allison talked about how she used to date this loser boyfriend who just hid in his house, all day rejecting society. He was completely boring and totally thoughtless. Hearing this, Cart felt so called out. Wasn't that basically a carbon copy of the old him? But now he's shaken off the dirt and stands shining bright. Basking in the early morning sun, these two perfectly matched puzzle pieces vibed together and shared a kiss to seal the deal. During those days drowning in love, he took his girlfriend to party at a costume bash, while Allison trained Cart. In the middle of the night, with too much free time and reckless energy, the lovebirds hopped a fence and broke into a giant outdoor amphitheater. Cart took the spotlight, screaming his go-to song, while his girlfriend sat in the VIP seats clapping along. The sound echoing through the pitch-black night was also proof of the couple's brilliantly blossoming romance. Allison smiled and admitted she'd never let anyone drive her baby, and Cart teased back, saying he'd never been kissed here before either. Fueled by love, Cart's luck soared like a kite in the wind, and his career blossomed. Thanks to his super generous loan approvals, in just over a month, Cart had stamped a whopping 500 personal loan applications. Meanwhile, a normal loan officer working their butt off could only process a few dozen. This crazy, unreal stat reached the branch's board of directors. Cart and his boss Norman got called up to the boardroom, both totally convinced they were about to pack up their desks and get fired for sure. Who could have guessed, but this was actually amazing news. They had no idea that those easy loans went to customers whose businesses took off, so they paid them back perfectly on time. This scored the bank a massive profit, making the board so thrilled they promoted Cart's entire team. Upper management happily called out their names to praise them and excitedly went in for a fist bump to congratulate Cart. Norman, standing next to him, eagerly tried to soak up some of that spotlight and got tossed a pity high five from the boss. Going from zero to hero, Cart effortlessly climbed to the very top of the career ladder. The secret is that even that random bunch of skills he picked up earlier suddenly became weapons for him to show off to his friends. Watching her buddy rattle off fluent foreign languages with the bridal shop staff, his best friend was stunned and didn't understand a single word. It's hard to believe the guy who used to hide at home binge-watching shows all night now has this many random talents. While she was still dazzled by her friend's glow-up, suddenly, someone rushed into the store panting for help, announcing there was a guy dangling off a ledge outside. Hearing there was trouble, Cart quickly ran out to check. The guy, up high, was screaming out of control while the ambulance and cops were still stuck in traffic far away. The crowd below just stood there with their mouths open waiting. Channeling his inner fake hero, Cart scrambled his legs and dashed upstairs, storming loudly through several dark flights of stairs. Panting heavily, he dragged himself out to the balcony. But when facing the victim's desperate eyes, our main guy stammered and couldn't squeeze out a single word of comfort. In a life-or-death moment, he glanced through the neighbor's window and spotted a dusty guitar. That amateur guitar class he took to show off was now a literal lifesaver, holding on to a human life. He grabbed the guitar and strummed it like a pro, literally using the guy's miserable situation to improvise a song trying to talk him down. The catchy tune and his hilarious expressions filled the air. The absolute nonsense Cart made up miraculously soothed the despair of the guy ready to give up. This hastily patched together mental medicine didn't just help that desperate guy find hope again. The man, tearing up, said that he finally understood. Shortly after, Cart suddenly became an unsung hero thanks to his righteous act. This unexpected spotlight didn't just make Allison fall even harder for him, but even his ex-wife, who had walked away, now desperately demanded to get back together. But Cart, at the end of the day, had already found his true love. Every weekend, Cart and Allison would hold hands and head straight to the airport, randomly picking a flight that was about to take off to start an impromptu trip. The trip was exactly like a mystery box, not even caring which city the destination was. The staff announced the next flight would land in Lincoln, Nebraska. They both agreed without hesitation and locked in tickets to Lincoln. They were super stoked about this destination. At the Lincoln Telephone Museum, the two of them eagerly admired the telecom inventions before swinging by a shooting range for some thrills. Allison excitedly bragged that she had just hit the target. Thrilled, she demanded to try another shot. Meanwhile, his best buddy at home called to check in, only to be met with the deafening sound of gunshots. He had to just sit at home hugging the TV, totally jealous of Cart. Time peacefully slipped by. They were officially dating, but in reality, neither had truly let the other step deep into their personal lives. Because of that, Allison took the initiative and suggested moving in together. But the moment Cart nodded, his eyes were shifting all over the place. Cart was clearly hesitating. Maybe the shadow of his failed marriage was still haunting him, because moving in together meant having to be more responsible and sincere. Everything hit a boiling point on their next trip when Cart and Allison suddenly got snatched up by security. The cops suspected Cart was a dangerous radical because he always bought plane tickets right before takeoff. Add in the fact that Cart had taken flying lessons and also mingled with a woman from a sensitive nationality. The most suspicious part was that he had approved a loan for a chemical fertilizer plant. The police interrogated him on whether he was planning to build explosives, and they kept grilling him about his flying lessons. Cart frantically admitted it, but claimed it was just a joke. The police pressed him on why he was learning Korean, suspecting he was colluding with hostile forces. Cart completely panicked and denied everything entirely. They even dug up the fact that his previous marriage lasted a mere 6 months, assuming he was in a fake marriage to score a green card. Only then did Allison, standing right next to him, shockingly find out he used to have a wife. Cart awkwardly admitted to his past. He explained that he was planning to find a chance to tell Allison later, minding his own business and suddenly getting treated like a terrorist. Not only did Cart have no idea how to clear his name, but his friend had to bring a book to the security station to prove that the reason Cart learned all sorts of random stuff was purely because he got brainwashed by a get-rich-quick seminar, that the organization forced him to say yes to everything in the world. Even though it finally cleared Cart's name, this truth completely shattered Allison. She was devastated to realize that Cart's constant yes was nothing more than the conditioned reflex of a manipulated guy. And this passionate romance was the same. Maybe it was just forced because he didn't have the guts to say no. Allison angrily kicked Cart out. There was a cold distance between them now, as she demanded he stay away, and he had no choice but to helplessly agree. Ever since the mess blew up that day, Cart was like a zombie. All the life energy he'd barely managed to spark up again had now reverted back to those dark, depressing days. But this time, he decided to fight back in his own way. The moment his ex-wife came around trying to hook back up, Cart flat out dropped a firm no. And exactly as expected, the bad luck curse immediately rained down on Cart's head. Just as he stepped into the elevator, the power died and went pitch black. After struggling hard just to crawl out of the elevator, a stray cat jumped out of nowhere and scared the living daylights out of him. The scariest part was, he hallucinated seeing a clone of himself. Cart totally believed he was actually cursed. And the only person capable of breaking this was that seminar guru. He sneaked into the guy's car to demand the curse be lifted, but indirectly caused a major accident instead. An ambulance had to rush the guru to the hospital. Lying on the stretcher, the guru finally confessed to Cart that opening up your heart can bring positive change, but it definitely doesn't mean blindly jumping into things recklessly. You have to know how to combine logic with the sincerity of your heart. That's the real core truth to mastering your own fate. Hearing these words, Cart had a massive wake-up call. Those rigid robotic rules he tied himself to were ultimately just an excuse for him to dodge responsibility. The slick driving skills Allison taught him earlier had now become the ultimate tool to take him back to his true love. He sped like crazy to the park where she taught running, determined to win Allison back right on this ground full of memories. Fighting to win back the perfect missing piece he almost lost, Cart sincerely confessed that if he hadn't said yes that day, there's no way he would have been blessed enough to meet her. Because his terrible past version didn't deserve anyone, being forced to say yes was just the stepping stone to get him to open his heart. Otherwise, sooner or later, his uselessness would have been exposed anyway. His cowardice and evasive nature in the past used to make Cart a total loser. A guy who always craved happiness, but backed down in the face of opportunity. Luckily, Now Cart doesn't want to run away anymore because he's got the girl he wants to stick with until they're old. In the days that followed, Cart and Allison joined charity events together. The two of them personally brought donated clothes to hand out to those struggling on the streets. The funny thing is, this pile of clothes full of love was mostly begged off the disciples of that professor because they were also in the middle of practicing the lesson of saying yes. Looking back at this whole journey, what's the real meaning of life? Is it a deep, unforgettable, long-lasting romance, reaching the absolute peak of your career, or a bank account with countless zeros? Ever since we cry our first hair into this world, we get dragged into an endless race. In school, we compete over every grade and every talent. When we hit society, we compare ourselves using jobs, houses, and cars. Even up to the moment we kick the bucket, people still nitpick over whose coffin is fancier. However, the colorful world out there always has room for miracles. Why don't we just wipe away people's prejudices and freely paint the picture of our own lives? Don't be afraid to throw yourself into new experiences and smash that boring loop. Of course, on the journey to finding personal happiness, the core thing is still keeping your principles and a cool head, and then your life will definitely bloom at its brightest.